Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to the Larry Yates' show. Unfortunately, Larry Yates is not here. The infamous man is disappeared again, and he is on the road doing good works. This is Reverend Carolyn Wilkins. You can call me Carolyn. You can call me Rev. Just make sure you call. And we are doing a wonderful show today with a surprise guest. Again, the Larry Yates' show. Every week we bring you people from the neighborhood, from around the world, who are doing magnificent things that are very seldom in the news. And this is an excellent example. The people we have here today are people from the inner city Shakespearean theater. And what they're going to be sharing with you is life stories, how they got involved with Shakespeare, and also a little bit about the performance that they are doing around this city that can bring light, awareness, and a new energy and language to the city of Los Angeles, and taking it from the city of LA. We know everything starts here. It can make a difference in the world. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce all of our amazing guests. And I want to first say, because we also talk about politics, it's not been easy, because I continue to see the movement of certain heads of political parties seeming to get stronger and stronger, dropping the concerns that are shown about what this country, I believe, stands for: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yet there are leaders who are running for president who don't seem to want to share that with everyone who comes into the borders of the United States. So I just am encouraging you to be conscious voters. Make sure you are paying attention to the candidates, not only on a presidential election, but also those who are coming in for judgeships, for city councils, and other things that are in your neighborhood. We have a California primary here next Tuesday, June the 7th, and I encourage everyone in the listening audience to please vote wherever you are. We actually are broadcasting around the world, so this goes out to thousands of people all over the world. And wherever you are, please use the opportunity to vote as a stance for the power that you hold with the election. Many people fought, wherever you are, for you to get the vote. Don't throw it away. And we're going to get started now. I'm going to ask some of the young people who are here in the studio with me to comment first on the just brief ideas about the election, what you're thinking, not asking you how you're going to vote, but the importance of the vote. And then we'll move into talking more about Shakespeare. So let me start with Juvanie. Any thoughts?
I'm a Bernie Sanders guy.
Okay.
I think he's as close as we have to an ideal presidential candidate. His ideals, his views. I think the topic you touched on, life, liberty, and happiness, I think he goes after those three things more than any other candidate does. The importance of the vote at this time is very, very important. My personal beliefs are there are a couple of other candidates that are campaigning off of the fears of American, or campaigning and taking advantage, of what we don't want, and I think in some sense it's exaggerated, but whatever it takes to get to vote. So our vote is important. That's the only thing we really, can do, and it makes noise when we all gather together, and support a cause.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your thoughts. I have some thoughts of Bernie that I'll share in a second. So, Saint.
It's particularly interesting because for me, I don't see people running for president. I see love versus hate running for president. I see what's going on the inside. And to me, that's what should draw everybody to the polls. Who will you stand for? What are you supporting? Like Juvanie said, I'm more so of a Bernie Sanders guy. I voted for Bernie Sanders because I believe in him, and he embodies love to me. He embodies what it means to care for someone, to care for the homeless and want to help them out, and to give people more opportunities in the workforce, more opportunities in their communities. So that's what I support, and I really encourage people to get out to the primaries on the 7th, to get out and voice your opinions about what you think matters in your community, and I really hope that it's the right one.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And as we go around the table, we have Brandon. Would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, not too many. I mean, Bernie comes from the heart, definitely, and so he gets me. I'm just being honest. I'm not really paying attention to the elections.
I appreciate your honesty.
I don't know. But I would say,
Are you going to?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And I like Bernie because he comes from the heart. But again, I'm just trying to get to heaven. I'm not really interested in the elections this year. I'm all good. It's just all rigged. I'm not gonna say too much, but it's just Bernie is coming from the heart at this point, and yeah, I'm just trying to make it.
I understand. And we'll have quick thoughts from, as I'm going to use this to introduce everyone, Dr. Maisha Hazzard. If you'll share a thought quickly on this idea, because I know how powerful you are in speaking about voting.
Hello, everyone. This is a critical time in the world, not just in the United States of America. And the vote counts because it's so important for us to have someone who has experience, who really understands what's going on in the world, not just in the U.S., who understands foreign policy, who understands also the domestic issues, who has demonstrated that things can actually be done through the system.
Yes.
There are individuals right now who think that it's time to overturn the system. And I think if we look worldwide at this moment, in those countries in the past few years where the central government has really been totally disrupted, destroyed, chaos has.
They're in chaos, yes.
They're in chaos. And that's because we have instantaneous communication with one another. You can pull a crowd or a mob together in a very short period of time with Twitter and Facebook and blogs and all of those things.
Yes.
And so it's important to know that it's important to preserve the union.
Yes.
At this particular point in human history. This is not just about Americans.
Yes.
And with that in mind, I think you have to go to the polls, understanding what you're voting for and whom you're voting for, who can really do the job, who understands the big picture of the work. I am deliberately not saying whom I'm voting for, but some of you listening closely probably can tell. And I'm saying that in this way because I think it's important for folks to vote their conscience.
Yes.
But what I'm seeing is a lot of folks are voting their emotions and not really looking from an analytical standpoint at who's really prepared.
Who's prepared.
And
and what they can bring to
and
the
what
party.
they can bring
Yes.
to the table,
Yes.
and whom they can negotiate with.
Yes.
Because politics does not mean dictatorship,
No.
at least we hope in this nation. And that means then that you have to collaborate. And that often means that there's some compromises to be made. But when you can stand on a bully pulpit, just speaking of your own position, thinking that that is the only way, there's a problem, because ultimately you're going to have to find a way to negotiate
Yes.
with other people. And I'll stop there. We could do a whole show on this.
Yes, we could, and we may do it next week because
Right.
actually I do want to do one next week that's really totally intentional about how to be voting consciously.
Right. That's critical.
And there can be some faith-based things that we look at, but more from us looking at all possibilities and all angles of this. And I'm inviting some people that represent different parties. They can show or not, but we can have that conversation. I think it's so important. For some reason, at this time in our history, to me, this is one of the most important elections I get to participate in.
Call me for next week, please.
You got it. Yes.
I worked for a dictator in South America in
Oh, really?
my early years, and so I understand the problems
Yes.
of dealing with a dictator or dealing with in a place where the vote is limited by the party that's in power,
Yes.
and where violence always accompanies the elections, and that's something that I think we really have to think about here.
Yes.
Do we want the riots in the streets? What will it accomplish?
What will it accomplish? Yes. Thank you so much. And Dr. Melanie Andrews.
Well, I can tell you this. I've been a civil rights worker since I was 9 years old,
okay.
when my grandfather gave me a lifetime membership to the NAACP instead of a Barbie.
Yes.
That's the world I grew up in. I demonstrated. I walked with Dr. King when I was 12, and the right to vote is essential. I'm also an artist for human rights for the United Nations. So every year or so, I get to go to the UN and talk to young people that are living in terrible oppression. My family is very politically involved. My sister worked for AFL-CIO and did a lot of work with Obama. And as much as I love Obama as a person, his inability to find consensus to get the Congress to do what they need to do has stopped the majority of things that his administration would like to accomplish.
Yes.
So you can say, I like this and I'll give free tuition, I can do that, but the reality is you can't do it alone.
Can't do it by yourself.
I work for Congress, I've also worked for the Assembly, and I've been a city council person. And early on you learn you've got to count to 3 or 5 or whatever. And it makes no difference how wonderful your ideas are if you cannot get consensus and get that piece of legislation passed. It's just talk.
Yes.
And we're at a point in this country where people are starving, our kids are dying, our role in the world as a United Nations ambassador is so diminished. People are calling me from all over the world. What are you guys doing? And it just so happened, but my 21-year-old niece, who speaks 4 languages and comes from Compton, is graduating this year from university, and she was an intern in Brussels on the train that blew up.
Oh, my
She was
goodness.
not hurt, but I think it brings it home to you that this hatred in the world cannot be escaped by anyone.
No.
And to deal with some of the young people from Africa, from China, from Russia, from all over that are dealing with oppression, we have to be careful with this vote.
Yes.
We can't vote for Disneyland.
No.
We have to vote for real, because I was on the front lines as a little girl. My mom thought I was going to church camp, and I was, but she didn't know it was Southern Christian Leadership Camp in Tucaloo, Mississippi with Dr. King. She didn't know that part till later. And that we got arrested and got hurt and saw the dogs in the water. So soon as I could vote.
This is real.
This is real
This
for
is
me.
real,
This is
yes.
not history.
Yes.
And you don't need to waste your vote. You need to have somebody that can win
Yes.
and someone that is going to vote like you want to. And I know from my own personal experience, when you sit in that chair as a city council member, that seat is hot.
Yes.
And people have great expectations, and you will not be successful unless you learn to compromise, unless you learn to negotiate. And some of the candidates are saying whatever people want to hear, but they never had to do it on the front lines.
Well,
They've never had to do it.
Amen. And what I've seen, I wind up being a pragmatist sometimes. And my degree, and I mentioned this before, my degree is in computer science and statistics, operations research. So show me the data. Let me look at what some of the details are, because even though I'm a heart-centered person by nature, I'm very balanced. You need to show me something. And what I did is I did my own research on the candidates. Now, some candidates you couldn't find much about because there wasn't much to get. But those who have been in Congress, I looked at their record. I looked at the state they were from, and I found something interesting, and I know some of our listeners have heard me say this. Are you aware that Vermont only has 600,000 people? Are you aware that Long Beach has 800,000 people? It's a sobering moment. So here we have someone who's coming from a state, representing a state who's smaller than a city that's down the street from us. Not anywhere as big as Los Angeles. In fact, I heard some data on the county of Los Angeles. There's so many people in the Los Angeles County that we have records for something like 215 million records that have to be kept track of. So if the person were coming from this area, I could say they can handle the stuff of this country because we're bigger. Los Angeles County is larger than 70% of the states in the United States. But a state like Vermont, there's not a lot going on. Not only is, and I'm sorry, it's not that I don't like Vermont. I've been through Vermont. I've stayed in Vermont.
The colors are lovely.
It's beautiful in the fall. It's beautiful in the winter. The levels of the homes are beautiful. The angles of the rooftops are beautiful. However, they are not a diverse world. Only 5% of the people in Vermont are non-white.
But
Rev, and that only accounts for something like 10,000 people. So I'm saying this only to say that I like the person who is running, but their background doesn't give me a sense of knowingness that they have what it takes. Okay. They have what it takes.
But we have a problem because these guys are brilliant and they're all willing to support a candidate that has almost no experience. And so how do we overarch
having this conversation?
Move them into a conversation where they're going to face the reality of how very hard it is to govern. Yes. Governance in this is not easy.
Well, you know what I just saw? An open eye. Because you all were shocked at my data, weren't you? Yes. Okay. Yes. It's a start.
It's a serious moment.
It's a serious moment,
and
yes.
When you vote your emotions, when you vote your fear,
yes,
and your
excitement
and your hopes,
the
and your
enthusiasm is another level of fear. It's excitement from another place, and I can't talk about it as being wrong because I was so excited about Obama.
Me too.
8 years ago.
I was just
and the world, and I'm still happy that he became the president.
I am too.
I am so disappointed that the Republican Congress made it their business to stop every initiative that he did. However, I'm totally sure, and I know from the data that we have, that a lot has happened that has not been publicized. I've done marketing for many years, and that's actually my only upset, is I don't know what's going on. I don't hear what's going on. And I felt like one of the things that he needed most importantly was a publicist, a marketing person that said, hey, today, look what we did. Last week, this is what we accomplished. I want to stay on top of this because we pulled you out of this financial crisis, and I'm going to stay right on top of letting you know what happens month by month of what this administration is able to accomplish. That's what I wanted to hear, and I didn't get to hear it. So I'm passionate about that, as you can tell, but I'm also passionate about the work you all are doing. I grew up in New York City. I had the opportunity to go to theater on Broadway. I've gone to small theaters, to large theaters. I've seen James Earl Jones do Shakespeare. I have been touched by the work of Shakespeare and read Shakespearean plays from elementary school. So who we have here today are 5 talented and amazing actors and producers and directors who have brought the gift of the work of Shakespeare to the inner city. So I'm going to start with Dr. Andrews. I'm going to come back to you because I'll introduce her now as the artistic director
and
founder
and costume designer
and all around,
and whatever it takes, like you, producer.
Yes, of this amazing program. Would you take a moment and share with our guests? I know you've been doing this for a while, but share a little bit about your history of being involved with Shakespeare and how the inner city Shakespearean theater came about.
Well, I wear a lot of hats, and I'm lucky about that. My mother used to call me a perpetual student, so I have lots of degrees and all of that. So I'm a college professor. Right now I'm working with elementary school, and I work with high school, and I work with professionals. I started to like Shakespeare as a little girl. My mother was from the South. She went to Prairie View, which is our family college that my grandfather helped to found, and she used to read Shakespeare to us. In fact, the family would get together and read Shakespeare. And when I was about 16, I was working in what's now the Ebony Showcase, now the Nate Holden Theater, and I was doing a play, and somebody got sick, and I took over the part, and I got an equity card at 16, and there was this wonderful group of actors that took me under their wing, and I began to train. I'd taken classes with Ruby Dee and all Cicely Tyson, etc. I have advanced degrees. And I went to New York, and I got an internship with the New York Shakespeare, Joseph Papp. And I was moving coffee around and thought, I don't want to be an actor anymore because every time I'm an actor, I have to have an apron. And I thought, I'm smart. I understand it as well as the director. I became a dramaturge because Shakespeare goes on forever. Somebody has to cut it. Yes. And make a long story short, I've worked in New York, I've worked in Europe, I've worked in China, all over the world, in Africa as an artist. And I've always had a theater family. And after the death of my husband in Atlanta, I worked with the Atlanta Black Arts Festival. I came back to LA and I couldn't find a theater family. So I created my own. With the help of some Paul Heller and Katie Haber from the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, they came to Juvanie School, and so did I at the same time. And they wanted to do Shakespeare. And so we started out doing Romeo and Juliet before his time. And God bless you, Washington Prep kids. At that time, the group of actors we had were gorgeous, but basically totally unable to understand the language, but they were motivated. So we created a mentoring program. So we had mentors from the British Academy of Film and Television Arts coming to South Central, which was hilarious. Helen Mirren, Michael York in the early days, whole line of actors and fight masters coming to Washington Prep High School and working on these shows. Richard Chamberlain, all these people were so giving, and each kid had a mentor. And then after a while, the school decided they didn't need the arts, even though we'd been honored by Brit Week and the British Academy. They decided we didn't need this. And so I decided to leave, and I took a job working for the superintendent, and we became a nonprofit. So we've been at this for 6 years.
Beautiful.
We were just featured on the BBC. We have a long relationship with the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, where who's the prince? I forgot. Kate's husband.
Charles.
No, the younger.
Okay.
Well, we're
Kate's
not
husband.
into
I
British,
don't know,
whatever.
no.
This is a big black eye for us.
No.
But anyway, they have been
It
financial
is Charles.
supporters.
Charles and Edward.
Yeah, right, Edward. And they were very supportive of us, and they provided financial support, etc. We became a nonprofit. The biggest problem, we couldn't find a theater. So LA County Parks, Joe Mendoza and Mark Ridley Thomas made the entire county available to us.
Beautiful.
And they build our sets and move them around. So we show up, it's like magic. There's a set. The shows are always free, and they're always very, very professional. And people are often just blown away. And our production of Othello right now, we had a performance last week that I was in the back. I was like, look at this. This is so good. Oh, my God, it's amazing. And I am excited to be the mentor for so many. We're up to about 800 or 900 now kids that have gone through this program.
Excellent.
Everyone graduates from high school, and everyone goes to college or into professional life. I'm talking everyone. 85% are in four-year colleges.
Yes.
And 100% graduate from high school. We had one that had not graduated, and we chased them down. He graduated last week. So I can honestly say, in front of the whole world, 100% of inner city Shakespeare students graduate from high school, and about 85% go to four-year colleges.
Excellent. So, Dr. Maisha, thank you so much. Can you share with me the locations that it's Othello this time, right?
Yes.
And each year, I imagine, at least from what I've seen, that you do a different program each year. Is that correct?
Well,
a different play.
To ask about that question should actually go to Dr. Andrews.
But
I'm a newcomer.
Okay. But this year, what have you done?
This is my first year working
Okay.
with the ensemble. And on Sunday, May the 29th at 2:30, we will be at the Monteith Park in is that considered Baldwin Hills
View Park?
View Park. And on June the 3rd, we will be at the community center at 81st and Vermont. The exact address, I believe, is 8039.
That's
Is that
7
right?
p.m.
And
Yeah,
that's at 7 p.m. And on the 3rd, we really invite everyone to come. We want you to come to Monteith Park as well. But on the 3rd, it will be video recorded.
With the BBC.
Yes, with the BBC. And so that's a wonderful opportunity for these young actors. The majority of the cast is between 13 and 27. There are two old heads in the mix, and I'm one of them.
And your role is?
My role is the Duchess of Venice.
Okay.
And it's actually a role, if you're actually reading Othello, you will find that it was the Duke of Venice.
Yes.
And now the Duke in this trans world
yes.
has become the Duchess.
That's what happens when you have a female director.
Yes,
we will
wonderful.
have a Duchess.
And it was also a factor that we needed a role for a young woman who wanted to be in the production, and she quit. And in that moment, I opened my mouth and said, "Okay, if push comes to shove, I can do it." But I really thought we would find someone, and so I
didn't even look.
I just stepped in. To fill what is a small part.
Yes.
But I've enjoyed working as a mentor with these young actors who are brilliant. I can't wait to see them in 10 years when they really have matured as artists.
Yes.
You'll see them on the stage and the screen.
Well, thank you so much. So I want to start and come back to Juvanie, who plays Othello. And I'm going to ask a couple of questions. One is how you got started in being interested in Shakespeare or in acting. And then I'd like you to give us a sample of what you do on stage?
Well, my start to acting was in middle school. In 6th grade, there was a girl I liked. She was
You
into
can
acting.
laugh, yes.
And in 7th grade, I switched my elective to acting so I could be closer to her. We're still friends today, and it has worked out with acting even better.
Yes.
By the grace of God, I was in a tough situation in high school where I had to transfer. And I transferred to Washington, and I did not have any elective credits because I was focused on football. So from familiarity alone, I just said, okay, I'll do acting. And Dr. Andrews was my teacher.
Wonderful.
In 11th grade. And that's the year we did like showcases during the high school Black History performances. So, I kind of stayed under her wing. And then we got into 12th Night, which was my first Shakespeare play I've ever done. I played Antonio. And it was a beautiful thing. What really drew me to Shakespeare in particular was the complexity of the language. How a group of kids, at Washington High didn't know what was being said. It was a comedy, but we didn't know where to laugh, like what was funny because the language was, so complex. And, in retrospect, looking back, how we were able, to generate that ensemble and put out that product to the audience, and really do it well. That's what made me say, this is something I need to be a part of. And Dr. Andrews has dragged me along every Shakespeare play of the way, and I've loved every bit of it.
Beautiful. And what in the language has enthralled you?
I would have to say how tough it is. I'm not one who really quits anything. And, with every play, it's rare that you see the people you start with all the way through the end. There's at least that one person, but I like to pride myself as someone who doesn't. And I would say that language, because traditionally we did 60-minute Shakespeare, for audiences, and this was the first year we did the complete text.
Okay.
And it was like the first time I read Shakespeare. It was so much more complex, when you get that full text and you have to break it down, it makes you appreciate it more. And then this cast in particular, I really feel like it's the most rewarding because this is probably the most adversity we faced as a cast in all of other 5 Shakespeare plays I've been a part of. We were hit with so much, so many people having the drop or choosing the drop, so many understudies stepping up, like my man Saint right here, beautiful Iago, and for us to go through all those growing pains and really, still put out excellence is very rewarding.
You covered quite an area, and you really, I'm so proud of what you brought forth, because what you said is there are obstacles. And at the same time, if you're committed to making it happen,
Definitely.
It can happen. And there's some that got there with you and others that didn't. So I thank you for that. And first, can you also tell us a little bit about the character and the play Othello?
Yes, Othello is a Moor. The Moor was a group in Egypt, Africa.
Africa, yes.
Very dominant group. Won't really find them in too many history books, but they were a very dominant group of people.
1813 BC to 1315. Yeah, deep.
He was called over to Venice to fight for the
Duchess of Venice.
The Duchess of Venice.
Against the Turkish.
Against the Turks. They gave him complete power, his own army to take command of. And when he goes over to the house of the Brabantio, Desdemona's father, he tells stories, and Desdemona is she kind of falls in love with me through my storytelling, through my telling of, all of the things I had. There's a line, actually, she loved me for the dangers I had passed, and I love her that she did pity them. It was a complete it wasn't planned or anything, but we did, in a sense, elope. And that's where the conflict lies, because my Iago here, he wanted to be second in command right after me, and I chose someone else. So
that wasn't too cool.
Yeah, so he kind of manipulates me into thinking that Desdemona is unfaithful, and I have a history of epilepsy, and he just plays with my head the entire show, and it's just beautiful the way it lays out. And as the audience, I've talked to a few people that watched it. They just really, you get that sense, and you like, how can you not tell that he's playing with you? How can you not tell that he's lying with you? And I think that's the goal, to really get the audience involved like that, kind of upset. I think it's his goal to have people in the audience upset. People disappointed in me for not telling. I think that's a sign that we're doing it right.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to have you two do something together. So, Saint, can you tell us a little bit about your work and how you got here, and a little bit about Iago?
I would say I've been here about 6 weeks now. I come from Arizona. I went to Arizona State, where I got my master's in communication studies in theater. And I went there for 2 years. I've been there for 3 years in Arizona. Before that, I came from Jackson State University in Mississippi, where I studied.
That's a shout out to Larry.
Yes.
Larry, we have
Shout out
some
Larry.
Mississippi folks here.
Yes, we're here now.
Sometimes we need translation.
Yes,
but it's
yes.
okay.
But yeah, I studied there, and I did a ton of plays. I got my first principal role there. I did a ton of musicals. I'm a musical guy, so a lot of singing, dancing, and acting. Triple threat, I consider myself sometimes. So I'm here now in LA, and I found this opportunity, Othello, online, backstage.com. So I reached out to, I think it's Leslie Brown, to see if I can get involved. The casting agent, yeah. To see if I can get involved with the show, just to help out, just to mentor, just to, help with the language, because I'm a guy that needs help with Shakespeare. This is my first Shakespeare show. I've never really done Shakespeare, but I've always been the guy that likes August Wilson, famous playwrights, so I like to perform those types of things. So it was a challenge for me, but because I was a speech major, communication major, it wasn't too hard to grasp the language. It wasn't too hard to understand the language and where Iago was coming from, and understanding what my wife Emilia is telling me on stage, and Cassio and Othello. So although I got the lines 28 days before the show, it was...
Our last Iago had to work or something, and he quit.
Yes.
And so we rearranged the cast and brought him to Iago. And Iago has the second largest number of lines in all of Shakespeare, right after Hamlet. So it's not a small thing. He's on stage almost the entire time.
And he had the least time to learn it.
Yes.
This guy is amazing.
Well, my hats off to you.
Thank you. It was a great process. What can I say? I learned so much. I learned so much about myself, because I said, how can I do this? Melanie came to me on April 2nd, and she said to me, that you may have to pick up this part. And in the back of my head, I'm like, are you serious? I'm saying in the back of my head, like, no, I'm not about to do this. I'm not in the back of my head. But I looked at Melanie, and she just looked at me with the most puppy eyes. And I was like, yes, I would do anything for you. So I took the script, and I had already highlighted all Rodrigo's lines. This is my initial part. Rodrigo was the fool, my fool in the show. And I just had to scratch out all of his parts and just highlight all of Iago's parts. And when I was highlighting, I'm telling you, it took about an hour. It took me an hour to highlight all of his lines. And I got myself stressed out at a time, and Maisha sent me this. I'll never forget this. You sent me a message with this dragon, and it was blowing out breath that said, breathe. And I just, breathe, you got this. And honestly, that helped me out. And what can I say? It has become a very beautiful show. And I have enjoyed the journey and the process. And big ups to the cast and to these ladies for being so patient with us, because it wasn't easy. We put them through some stuff, from Melanie just throwing chairs everywhere. And
I did not throw a chair.
I was just kidding.
I want to go on.
They're talking about the behind the scenes stuff.
I did not
Behind the
throw a
scenes,
chair.
yeah. I'm just
Maybe
kidding.
a shoe, but
she
not
didn't
a
throw any
chair.
chairs. It was a great
You threw a
experience.
bottle.
Yeah,
Oh, wonderful.
he threw a bottle. But it was a great experience, and I'm so happy that I came across that backstage posting.
So far, two very eloquent young men, and I'm just so excited because sometimes, based on what we see, what we hear in the news, what we see in the media, the rest of the world does not know you exist.
Absolutely.
I want you to know this. This is real. And I consider myself someone who is really paying attention, watching stuff. However, when it comes to our young black men, I'm nervous because I wonder where they are. How are they following through? Are they coming through with knowledge? And it's not that college is the only place to be educated.
It isn't.
However, it helps
To open a door.
to open doors, to get jobs, to be able to read what it is that you're trying to do. Because if you hadn't done all the work you had done, you couldn't have gotten what you did in that time. So I'm just so touched by each of you. And Brandon, tell us about you. You're the quiet one over there.
Yeah.
What role are you playing and how did you get involved?
I play Cassio. I am the lieutenant who was promoted over Iago. That's a no-no.
Oh, so we got some jealousy going
some jealousy
here.
going
Yes.
on there. Cassio, this guy really cares a lot about his reputation. You know, he has a flaw. He's an alcoholic. He's a drunk.
Okay.
He can't hold his liquor. And so when that happens, there's a moment that happens. But yeah, I don't want to give too much away.
No, I'm saying okay, just don't know.
Okay.
You guys
But
want,
yeah.
So
you guys
as
wanna do
we
the- I'm sorry.
as we are looking at that, so I'll do that in a second. But in your role, how long did it take you to get there? Had you done any Shakespeare before?
Yeah, I was first introduced to Shakespeare back at when I was studying at El Camino College.
Okay.
Shout out to Ron Scarlata. You know, he really introduced us to.
They had
just the
Shakespeare
power.
at El Camino.
Yes, at El
Now,
Camino.
see, that's
And
a
at
whole
Compton College too.
that's a whole nother thing to talk about. That's good to know.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
excellent. So he really taught us just the power of it, really speaking it a little bit more. Then afterwards, I transferred to USC. Woo, woo.
We do this all the time.
You know, transferred to USC. You know, again, study theater there, and I took a wonderful Shakespeare class with Mary Jo Negro, who really taught us to really just take our time with the language and hit certain things. And
Yes.
so,
Thank you. So can you
Introduce a scene.
introduce the scene? Yes.
Usually in Othello, Iago is white, and the whole cast is white.
whole cast
We
is
don't
white
care about
except
race. We'll
Othello,
have
yes.
Mexican and black twins. We're storytellers. And in our case, Iago is a wonderful African American actor. And why don't you do the scene, How Shall I Kill Him? You know that scene? All right, you ready?
Are we just
Take a
sitting
breath.
down?
Just sit down and just do it. Pretend you're standing up.
Yes.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And don't hold back.
And get close to the mic.
Yeah.
Remember your facials.
What scene is that? I gotta
you
flip through the
see
pages
how-
in my
did
head.
you see
Yeah,
how
yeah. I got it.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
You know where you are?
Uh-huh.
Okay, go.
How shall I murder him, Iago?
Did you perceive how he laughed at his vice?
Oh, Iago!
Oh, and did you see the handkerchief?
Was that mine?
Yours by his hand. And to see how he prizes that foolish woman, your wife.
Oh, I'll have him 9 years of killing.
Nay, but be wise.
A fine woman, a fair woman, a sweet woman.
Hey, but be patient, for perhaps your mind may change.
No, never, Iago. Ludwig's never. My heart is turned to stone when I strike it. It hurts my hand. Perchance I'll ne'er look back. Upon my knees I make my vow.
Do not rise. Witness thou ever burning lights above. Witness that here, Iago, doth give up the execution of his wit, his heart, his hands to wronged Othello's service. Let him command, and to be in me obey of what bloody business ever.
Oh, I greet thy love. Not with vain thanks, but with acceptance bounteous. Iago, within these 3 days, let me hear that Cassio is not alive.
My friend is dead. 'Tis done at your request. But Let her live.
Never. Lewd minx. Never! Come, go in with me. Now thou art my lieutenant.
I am your own forever.
And cut.
Wow. Woo. Powerful, amazing, totally in character. I had to step back because I felt like I was in the middle of something that was about to get on. So thank you so much. And actually from that scene, I know those who are listening understood really everything you were saying because it's so pertinent, it's so real of our jealousy, our upset, our concern, and how dare she, because I could tell you weren't too happy.
I think, Reverend, one of the things that we do is make Shakespeare accessible to people. People don't know the history of Shakespeare. They think it's blah, 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 blah. And really isn't. It's the soap opera of its time. And it traveled.
He took common situations, daily drama.
That's right.
And really, it's the housewives of Verona.
Right.
And,
and also it was the newspaper. There were no newspapers.
Yes.
And so he would do plays that wouldn't irritate Queen Elizabeth too much, but would talk about kings and queens. And he's also a terrible plagiarizer.
Yes.
And this particular play, Othello, is based on a French short story called The Cheaters, but he adds that more character. And you have to understand at that time, Europe is small.
Yes.
And the numbers of people of that kind of coloring almost draws a crowd. So it was an interesting concept. And I think...
So it sounds like he had a little marketing thing in him, too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
To
draw people
into the space. Because I know I've seen programs, and when I travel through Europe, I've gone to places that they showed where they did Shakespearean programs. And they're not that big. Some of the theaters are very small.
Very small.
So
Intimate.
It's an intimate setting, but they want people crowded around so they can come back again.
And so I think you have to understand Shakespeare's history. It would start with like jugglers outside the theater to get people in, and then there would be bear baiting where they would attack the bears, and there would be blood they had to clean up, and then they'd do the show. But the show had to be reachable to an audience for the most part that was illiterate.
Yes.
They did not read. Only the aristocracy could read. And so he did these stories that were entertaining, that were physical. We're so proud we had the fight master from Game of Thrones come in and show us how to use the swords.
Oh, really?
And we successfully make sure that the language is reachable. And the first part of rehearsal is just ponderous because I don't let them say any word they don't understand. And we're professors. So what does that word mean? That word, that phrase, what is the context and history, and how does it fit into the play? And it's an incredible play. It's free. Come out and see it, to see these incredible young actors.
Yes.
There's only 8 of us. And I'm so proud of them and the work they do. We're outside, we're in gyms, we're in theaters, we're wherever. And that's what Shakespeare used to do. And we bring theater to communities that don't have any.
Yes.
Just one, you're into facts. There are 10,000 theaters in LA County and only one in our part of town, and that's the Nate Holden. And there are
10,000
theaters in LA County.
Heavens.
There is one in from Nate Holden to the beach. There is one legitimate theater.
Well, now Vision Theater.
Now, and Vision's about to open. But even so, you go from Vision to the beach, there are none. In Gardena, in Compton, in Carson. And so we perform in those areas. And our goal is to get some equity for us.
Yes.
We performed in Hacienda Heights at a county park that was just like the music center. Why don't we have one of those in South Central?
Yes.
Supervisors, we're coming.
Yes, we are coming.
And there's spots I can envision places for you to be. I've been involved in theater. Was involved with Theater Works up in Palo Alto.
Absolutely.
And others through Business Volunteers for the Arts. I've given a lot of my time and energy into marketing, grant writing, other things with theater to encourage theater to be seen in the cities and inner cities. And we have so little time left. I'm so excited that you're all here. I want to just repeat the 2 performances that are available are Sunday, May 29th at 2:30 in Monteith Park, which is 4616 South Mullen Avenue in View Park, and that's outside of LA. And there's a special performance for television on Friday, June the 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Church of Scientology Community Center, 8039 South Vermont Avenue in Los Angeles.
At 7 p.m. And it's
7
free,
p.m., yes.
people.
It's free, and I encourage you across generations to come and view this. Just like I was so inspired even before I met you, but having met you, I would like everyone to see who you are. Young ladies, if you're out there, you need to come and watch these fine brothers. I'm not trying to single brothers.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm
being
looking for my
cougar now,
wife.
but
Talented,
talented,
Looking for my wife. Come on now.
educated,
intelligent, yes,
and
articulate.
Yes.
I am just blown away and so touched by who you are, what you're doing, what you're being in the world, and who I know you're going to be.
Amen.
So we're going to go around for some final thoughts. I thank you again for being here. I'll start with you. And we'll do it quickly and closely. Juvanie.
I just want to thank you for this opportunity. Othello, our production of Othello is really a great show. I really encourage everyone to get out. I appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate UBN Radio and TV. Great of you guys to let us come in and speak with you, about certain topics. We are really a group that takes pride in our performance. We're really a group that wants to give the best effort.
Okay. So I'll leave the last word to
Dr.
Andrews.
Thank you
30
once
seconds
again. Thank
quickly.
you so much. To
Yes.
whom much is given, much is required. We are straight out of Compton, the real straight out of smart, educated, capable. Come out and see Othello.
Yes, so I will close by saying this is an opportunity to see the Black community at its best, to see the best of who we are, what we do, not because it's Shakespeare, but because of the gifts that we have to bring into the world. And Shakespeare is only a vehicle for the gifts that we already are. And as Larry says, a nation can rise no higher than it elevates its women. I celebrate Dr. Andrews, Dr. Hazzard, for the leaders you are, and peace and blessings to everyone.
Peace and blessings.
Shout out to you. Thank you.